Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Long Distance Leader. Well, I guess if you've never been here before, you can't be back. But welcome to the Long Distance Leader. This is the podcast designed to help people thrive, survive, generally make sense of the world of remote and hybrid work and the changing 21st century workplace. My name is Wayne Turmel. I am the remote work and evolving workplace subject matter expert for the Kevin Eikenberry Group. If you're new to the podcast, you don't know that about half the shows I co-host with my friend and colleague Marissa. She is not here today. What that means is we have a really cool interview with a very smart person. And today, that person is Enrico Menichetti, and we are going to talk about leading international remote teams, but also remote work in Latin America and all kinds of interesting topics. And it would be far more interesting if he was talking about it instead of me. So, Enrico, welcome to the Long Distance Work Life.
Oh, hi, Wayne. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being had. And we have a true North American show because I am a Canadian living in Las Vegas and you are in Mexico City. So we pretty much have North America covered.
Yeah.
But most of your work isn't in North America. Tell us a little bit about VFS Global and then what you do, and we'll start drilling down into the good stuff.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. It's very excited for me to talk about this topic. And so at VFS Global, we service governments. We service governments, mainly embassies or missions that across the globe. And we do that we're placed in most of the countries in the world where we kind of like service them through a certain outsourced model. All the non-value work, let's say, of the missions, we will take that on to ensure that the mission itself can focus on the most important task, and that's giving the approvals, for example, of the visas or the passports to their own diaspora. So that's VFS focus areas. Currently, I am the head of Latin America and the Caribbean, where I'm in charge of the business itself, both the development but also the delivery of the operations.
Excellent. So let's start with big picture. And, we focus a lot on remote work, and unintentionally, but not surprisingly, we have mostly focused on either Canada, the US, or Western Europe. There is a big world out there. So can you kind of give me a very quick state of the world in Latin America? Is remote work accepted? Is it growing? Is it suspected? What do you see?
So maybe taking it back to early times when I started working, that was in Europe, where I had the privilege to very quickly become an expat and working in Eastern Europe, and then I moved my way all the way to Asia, in the Philippines, coming back to Dubai, and now ending up in Latin America. I think what I've seen is the trend of working remotely for sure is increasing. I think it's that flexibility that people are looking for very much. And specifically in Latin America, I would say very similar to the other regions. The challenges that I have seen that also create opportunities are very much into the cultural nuances and the differences that you find. Often people don't realize how big this continent really is, where you have a Brazil in Latin America that is a continent on itself. It's not a country, right? It has states that are bigger than most of the countries that we know of. So a lot of the challenges, I think, often we think about time zone differences, or we think about maybe the language barriers. But I would say that the biggest challenge is always the cultural and how to bridge that gap, I would say, in Latin America as well. Dealing with 35 different countries, including the Caribbean, I think it's very important, in my view, that leaders that are wanting to create high-performing teams in a region like this are not just knowing the culture, but they are really immersed into the culture, right? It's important that people feel that the leaders that are directing them are really understanding them, right? That there's this real curiosity as a leader. So that I would say it's an interesting aspect how to maneuver through that. One way I can say that is also a very constant is how does the leader create a lot of self-awareness? In a region like this with so many different cultures, the language is different, Spanish and Portuguese mainly, very little
Well,
English.
and as somebody who is married to a woman who is half Puerto Rican and half Mexican, even speaking Spanish is no guarantee that you speak the same language.
Exactly. That I was in Dominican Republic just yesterday, and although my Spanish is not too bad, but I had to do an effort to follow the speed of that Spanish, so it wasn't very easy. But I think self-awareness is something that I very early on in my career I started investing a lot of time and a lot of efforts because it's a constant work, it's a constant development. And why is that? Is because if we really want to lead people in any culture, in any language, in any place in the world, the best way you can do that is to understand yourself first very well. And if you understand yourself, building on those blocks and trying to then to create a curiosity and understanding the other cultures, I think that creates a very good base for a leader to develop.
You said something that really resonated with me, and it's not something we hear a lot here in the places that think we run the world. Uh, one of the things you said is that it's important that the leader adapt to the culture of where they're working. And I think a lot of us, particularly North Americans, spend a lot of time trying to get everybody to get with the program and adapt to us. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, exactly. And I feel if we, I mean, managing people is always about people. It doesn't matter if you do it virtually, remotely, face to face, right? So there's certain aspects that will always come back. For example, how to show empathy, how to show genuine interest in people, right? Creating genuine connections. So for that, very early on, making mistakes myself, I realized that there's no one fit for all, right? You need to adapt. And often in the Western world, even in Europe where I grew up, we take that for granted. We think that the whole world operates in a certain way, the way of thinking is the same. And I have a very specific example when I moved to Romania, Eastern
Please,
Europe.
yes.
Eastern Europe. I arrived there as a very young guy. I was 24, 25, in charge of this team. And I had this person that I hired, a manager, came to my office one day, sat down in front of me, and looked at me and said, "I don't think I can trust you," says the person. And I was taken back by that. And I said, "Can you tell me more, right? What's driving that?" "Oh, because since the time you came here, you've been understanding, you've been helping us. When issues arise, we are working on it together," says the person. And I don't think that can be real. That's not the real you, right? So and the person basically left my office by me saying, "Look, time will tell. There's not much I can say right now, but let's see in a couple of months." And the person came back eventually and said to me, "Look, I was wrong, right? It's possible to do it differently as well." But that being so direct, I wasn't really familiar with that, right? That culture of like just saying what they think versus then moving to the Philippines, where it was the opposite, where people are so graceful, very, very, very friendly, and they will never tell you what's really wrong because they work very much in an environment of collaboration and being nice to each other. And that was another aspect that I had to learn as well. So that differentiation, I think, it's a learning curve, but yeah, it's an important aspect of a leader again to embrace and to understand that it can be done differently. Yeah.
Yeah, in that little bit of international work that I've done, it seems like how we address conflict is such a powerful thing because there are cultures that have no problem going head on. And if
Right.
you don't do it that way, you are weak, or you don't know what you're doing, or you don't have confidence, versus harmony is important, and that is the most important thing. And neither is 100% constructive.
And that's the key. A very, very good point, right? Because how do you bring that all together? Because often when you are managing international teams, you have all these different cultures on one call at the same time, right? How do you manage that? And that really goes back to the point of trying to create these genuine connects, right? Often, I think the example of the bad habits that we sometimes create of like calling somebody up or being in a call and saying, "Oh, just a quick one, huh? Just a quick one, and I will be very quick." But actually, what that does, it takes away the connection, it takes away the trust. It's just like, I need something from you very quick, give it to me now. And I think working, if you know the person face to face every day, you can get away with that. But if you have an international team that you don't see often or seldom, these are very dangerous things to do, where instead of connecting first, create a connect, have a proper intro, create curiosity with the person you're talking, with the team you're talking, and then you create that harmony again of different differences that are as a culture on a whole.
You're saying so many things that are resonating with me and that sound kind of counterintuitive. And one of the things you just said is this notion of shorthand, this notion of quick communication. It can work very effectively if the relationship is there, if the trust is there, if there's history. But you need to start long and taking time and work to shorthand. You can't start there.
Because if you create that connection, you create that genuine, I call it, a genuine connection with your people. That also, again, is the base to also build your own culture. And as a leader, we all have different cultures of how we develop a high-performing team or a high-performing group, right? And then going to that, it goes back to the aspect of, as a leader, then you can really, having your self-awareness, start investing in understanding the person. What drives them? How can I get the best out of this individual? And so you basically go beyond that barrier of different culture and language now, and now suddenly you understand the person because you have created that bridge already. And then you build your culture. Right? My culture, as people know me, is very much driven by getting things done, right? Execution. So to embrace that as a culture, there's this book of Larry, who I forgot the last name right now, but who is The Art of Execution. And it's a book that I have been giving to a lot of my leaders all the time, because they're like, we can do a lot of talks, we can have great ideas, but our culture should be that we get stuff done, right? And I think that's also core to people that are living in different places, or a team that is spread across the globe, is how you build that culture that getting things done, because it doesn't matter which time zone I am or what needs to happen. My mindset is, I want to get this task done, so I will make sure that it gets done. I'm not going to wait until my 5 to 8 happens in my time zone. I will work with the group to really deliver the project, to deliver and execute.
Can you give us a couple of very concrete day one kind of things that you do when bringing a team, especially a disparate international team, together to help jumpstart those connections?
I would say in a virtual world, the first and foremost thing, excuse me, is cameras on. Have your cameras on. See each other. It looks very basic, but I think often that's being overlooked. People are connecting quickly again over the Zoom, over the different tools that we have. But the least we can do, as we are not in person, is let's look at each other and let's just have a face to face. I would say that's the first thing. The second thing is also really to create, again, that culture of give everybody an opportunity to speak up as well. We all have different cultures. We all have different approaches to the issues. Some cultures are more respectful and they will wait until somebody finishes talking. Other ones, actually, is almost like more respectful to start talking while somebody is almost finishing, because then I agree with his points, And so, and all of that needs to be understood and not changed, but how do we adapt to that, basically? How do we adapt? So, and slowly setting the tone, right? I go back to the fact of the self-awareness and also the art of execution. That's another aspect as well. So these are I would say the four things I would list as things that a team really, or a leader really needs to focus on to start building, let's say, a unified team globally.
I'm really interested in your experience because, I mean, I left a country and came to another country, but that was baby steps, right? Canada to the U.S. is not exactly a world shaking kind of move.
Still a change.
It is a change, and it's not Italy to Romania. It's not, you know, the Dominican Republic to the Philippines. How do you, what goes on in your mind when you find yourself in a new environment and you're not breaking bread and you're not sitting right next to the person? How do you get yourself in that mindset?
So one privilege I had is that I was raised by an immigrant family, Italian family, and I was raised in Belgium in a group where our community was any kind of nationality except Belgians almost. So growing up, Wayne, I must be very honest, I created a little bit identity crisis for myself because I never fit anywhere. I'm not Italian because I wasn't born in Italy, but at home we are Italian, but I was not Belgian. And when I travel, people always ask me where I'm from. I could never place myself. It's only later on that I realized that experience that I did, being having it like it was like normal for me to be in between different cultures, different mentalities, different languages. I think that created really the basis of me kind of like able to adapt quicker and faster. So what I would say is that with that is for most people, often we see our some of the aspects of our upbringing or developments, our challenges as issues, as problems. But I've always tried to see the golden nugget in those things that I've learned later on as well. And I think that's really, if I now have to go to the Dominican Republic or the Philippines, or I'm sitting in Eastern Europe somewhere, in Romania, for example, I don't really think anymore about how I want to be treated. It's about how do I adapt to the local customs there. I think that's a very important. I've seen a lot of expats, a lot of friends, colleagues, very successful as well. But I had a little bit of a challenge. Like even moving to Dubai wasn't very comfortable for them because getting out of their routines. So jumping into the unknown sometimes is a good thing. Not everything has to be laid out, because only when we jump into the unknown, sometimes we can find what's beyond that, right? What else can I do? How far can I go? So getting a little bit out of the comfort zone, I would say, it's important, accepting that fact.
And, you know, being humble without feeling inferior is an interesting balance. But a little humility does leaders some good.
Especially as a leader that needs to gain the respect of their team as well. It's a very fair point, right? It's like that humbleness, adapting, but also, yes, having assertiveness in terms of how you want to lead.
Enrico, this has been terrific, and as we knew would happen, the time has flown. Is there one thing that, as a leader, in your experience, is unique? I mean, not everybody has lived your life, to be sure. Is there one thing that you want to leave our audience with?
I think there's a lot of things, as you can see, that I can speak about. But the one thing, if you're aspiring to become a leader within your country where you are or abroad, no matter what your aspirations are, I always take the quote of Richard Branson very close to my heart. And that's like, when somebody asks you to do something, say yes, and then figure it out afterwards, right? And this is not about being always a yes man, but this is about accepting challenges, right? My life, if it brought me to where I am today, is because sometimes I take also uncalculated risks, knowing in the back of my mind that that's where the challenge sits. That's where I want to find development for myself and learn new things and eventually be successful.
Well, brother, that's how a lot of us got here. So I,
Yeah.
I take that motto to heart myself. Enrico, thank you so much for being with us. I am going to remove you from the video for a moment. This means nothing to the people listening on audio. If you want to know more about Enrico, we will have links to him on LinkedIn and to VFS and to his work on our homepage, which is longdistanceworklife.com. Uh, if you are interested in our new book, which is really our old book, The Long Distance Leader, Revised Rules for Remarkable Remote and Hybrid Leadership, the second edition, it is out now. We are very excited about that. You can learn how to buy multiple copies, how to get all kinds of free offers at kevineikenberry.com/LDL. As podcast listeners, you know how this works. We rely on word of mouth and you telling others. So please, please, please like and subscribe. We have over 120 episodes now for you to take advantage of, conversations with really, really cool people like Enrico. The other half are really cool conversations too, but they are with Marissa and I, darn it. And Marissa and I are interested in your questions, your thoughts, your comments. If you have an idea for a guest, if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, please, please, please let us know. We are both on LinkedIn, Wayne Turmel, Marissa Eikenberry, or Wayne at kevineikenberry.com or Marissa at kevineikenberry.com. And darn it, that's it for another week. Thank you so much. Thank you to Enrico for being with us. We really enjoyed bringing the show to you. My name is Wayne Turmel, and don't let the weasels get you down.